Well, hello indie people, how are you doing? And welcome to day 8, which is the final day of World Autism Awareness Week. You know, it's really sad to see this week come to an end, but I hope you've enjoyed these videos just as much as I've had filming them and editing them. If you've missed any of my World Autism Awareness Week videos from this week, then don't worry, there's a playlist at the top of the description and up there in the iCard. But anyway, today's video is a question that I often get asked, being on the spectrum, and that is it worth getting an autism diagnosis? So really today I'm just going to talk about my personal views on getting diagnosed and how I personally feel about this question. If you want to learn more about autism in the future, then consider subscribing down below and hitting that notification bell. It really helps me out and I really appreciate all of your support. Now, people ask me, is it worth getting an autism diagnosis? Quite often. I mean, I've had long discussions with my friends about being on the spectrum, what it's like for me personally, and ultimately, is it actually worth getting diagnosed? Because there are people who go through their entire lives thinking they may be on the spectrum, but ultimately don't go through the process of getting a diagnosis. And my personal answer to this question would be yes, because I think if you feel like you're on the spectrum, it's something you should at least consider and go to your GP or your doctor about and have a discussion with them and really just see what happens. You know, you may get diagnosed with autism, or in fact, if you talk to your GP, they may actually direct you to another specialist, which could lead to another diagnosis, but this could lead to a different treatment which is specific to the disability or the condition that you have been diagnosed with. So I think it's always worth going for a diagnosis if you feel that you're on the spectrum or you have autistic traits. Now, this is just me personally speaking, but I don't feel I would have gotten the same level of support in school, in college, if I didn't have a formal diagnosis. Just to give you a brief idea of when I was diagnosed when I was 4-5 years old, so I had early intervention. So basically I was seeing a speech and language therapist, I was placed in a special unit in school for people with autism and other learning disabilities, etc. And without that early intervention and that early support, I don't think I would be in the position where I am today. You know, I wouldn't be able to communicate effectively with you guys in this very intimate setting, you know, with a camera in front of me and everything. Also, with a formal diagnosis, you're able to actually access certain services wherever you live. And I think that's quite crucial to your development and where you want to go in life. Especially if you're a parent with a child who you think may be on the spectrum, I think that's crucially important, you know, getting that early intervention if it's appropriate. And actually, a lot of the time, adults get diagnosed with autism much later in life, like it's not picked up early on in childhood, and I truly do believe that getting a diagnosis in adulthood helps as well. You know, this is what I personally think, you know, if you get an autism diagnosis in later life, it can explain some of the quirky things or the weird things you think you did as a child, and the reason behind the quirkiness or the weirdness could be the fact that you're on the spectrum. Also, I believe if you get a diagnosis in adulthood, if you're struggling with something in particular, whether this is work or you have real difficulty in education, so college, university, I really think that a diagnosis can help with that, because with a diagnosis you're actually able to potentially get the right support for you. You know, everyone on the spectrum is different. You know, there are people who manage just fine, you know, they don't need any additional support or anything, but there are people on the spectrum who struggle with education, who have their own difficulties with work and also socially. So I think a diagnosis can really help with those issues and can actually point you in the right direction for you, and you can get the right support that you need as an autistic on the spectrum. Or if you feel you're exhibiting autistic traits, it's always worth taking a test online. I know tests online are not really that accurate, but I think it gives you a good idea of whether you want to pursue an autism diagnosis or not. And really guys, that's what I think about getting a diagnosis. I think it's something that you should pursue. If you feel like you're exhibiting autistic traits, or you feel you may be on the spectrum somewhere, I think it's something that you should at least consider and go forward with if you feel comfortable enough doing that, or you feel strongly that you're on the spectrum. Being diagnosed with autism has allowed me to be myself. I feel like I can just be myself. I feel more comfortable at the fact that I've got a diagnosis. This is just because I feel that my autism is a part of me. It's a part of my personality, and I wouldn't change that for the world, you know. Sometimes I do struggle. I'm not going to sit here and lie about that. I do sometimes struggle with social communication, and not understanding things 100% of the time. But that's a part of being human, and being human is understanding yourself as a person and understanding your personality and the way you do things, the way you like things. Because with me, I feel that getting the diagnosis of autism has really helped me in later life, especially in later life. If I didn't have that early intervention, I don't know where the heck I would be now. So that's what I personally think, guys. I'm really interested to know actually, when were you diagnosed with autism? Were you diagnosed in adulthood, or are you like me where you were diagnosed when you were 4 or 5 years old? It actually would be quite interesting to know what your diagnosis story was like. For me, I was diagnosed really early, so I don't have a real understanding what it's like being diagnosed as a teenager or an adult. So I'd really like to know what the differences are. So if you want to have a conversation with me, it would be really great to hear from you down below in those comments down below. But anyway, with that guys, thank you so much for joining me for World Autism Awareness Week. If you've been watching all of these videos from day one, I really do appreciate your support. Just thank you so much for watching these videos and taking time out of your day to be a part of this week with me. This week of awareness has been incredibly challenging, prepping all of the videos and everything, but I've really enjoyed it actually, and I'm definitely going to do it next year. But for now guys, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you're brand new, stay you, stay indie. I hope you have a really good day, and I will see you all in the next video. See you later guys.